Hello there, everybody. What Culture Wrestling's Adam Cleary here, and yes, we're going to have to talk about Saudi Arabia again. Okay, so on Friday, or today as it might be known, WWE presents its latest grim propaganda exercise, or pay-per-view as it might be known. It's going to be bigger than WrestleMania apparently, and it's coming to you live from the lovely city of Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. And the thing is, as promotional gambits go, which this is by the way, it's a bit of a strange one because WrestleMania 35 was so long, it was absolutely exhausting, but it was completely worth it for the two big moments we got. Kofi Kingston beating Daniel Bryan and Becky Lynch beating Ronda Rousey. These were both emotional stories about overcoming adversity, about beating the odds, about heart and desire, beating far superior opponents, but out of the 5 people involved in those two main events, only one of them can actually be on this show. Now, we'll get to where the 3 women are in a little bit, but Bryan is the most conspicuous by his absence, because let's not forget, his run with that WWE Championship really did elevate the belt. It did wonders for both SmackDown and the Championship as a whole, but now he's this weird lower mid-card presence for no other reason than the spectre of Super Showdown has really forced him out of the picture. Cast your minds back to Crown Jewel in November last year when we were in the midst of this Styles versus Bryan program. The Saudi General Sports Authority demanded that the WWE Championship be on the line, so instead of the logical match between those two, we got Styles versus Samoa Joe instead. And the reason Bryan wasn't there was because he chose of his own volition not to work that show. He didn't want to be a part of that whole propaganda exercise. Nobody forced him not to be there, so that's fine, I guess. Except for this time, there are 2 superstars who are being forced not to be there. We've got Sami Zayn, whose ancestry is deemed offensive, and Aleister Black, whose tattoos have been deemed offensive. Now, just a quick one on this. Many of Aleister Black's tattoos are drawn from his interest in the occult, so you'd think in quite a religious country that's the problem. But no, that is not the offending tattoo. The offending tattoo is the big piece, the giant green thing on his back. That is the folklore figure Lilith, who was the first woman to ever rebel against Paradise. And Aleister Black has said in interviews that the reason he has her is because she stands for equality between every man and every woman, and apparently you can't have that. So what that means is if Aleister Black is ever considered a WWE Championship or Universal Championship prospect, he will never be allowed to hold those belts in early spring or mid-autumn, because they must be defended on these giant showpiece events, and he cannot be a part of those. So no matter how over he gets, no matter what a star he is, no matter what they want to do with him in his career, he will find himself at this time of year 7,500 miles away from the action, sitting in a dark room while it all goes on in the desert. And while we're on the subject of equality, WWE's women's division will not be allowed to perform again. The entire women's roster, not a single one of them, will be performing on this show because they are women. Just let that sink in. Now, yes, I've done these videos enough to know that some of you will not be bothered by that in the slightest, and, well, it's your life, I guess, but you must still admit that it makes a complete mockery of WWE's transparent PR initiatives. Like we've said before, the women's revolution is genuinely one of the greatest things they've ever done. WWE claims that it really values its women's wrestling, but, and I've said this before as well, if your values are only your values when it's easy to have them, they are not your values. And what this boils down to is that the Saudi General Sports Authority has broken WWE's fictional universe. Like if Aleister Black gets super over, wins the Royal Rumble, draws a WrestleMania crowd purely to see him win a championship, that is still dwarfed by the kind of money they are putting in to the company. Like, that should be the big thing that matters, but it doesn't even compare. And as was revealed by Brandon Thurston in his absolutely unmissable WrestleNomics expose of the whole Saudi thing, go and watch that if you get a chance. By the way, Crown Jewel alone was worth more to WWE than the biggest WrestleMania they have ever done, which means they've gone from an entertainment company that needs to sell tickets to an event to just having their coffers stuffed with political, state-sponsored oil money. That's quite a change. Now, right, yes, there's always this weird relationship between business and entertainment and politics, and it always kind of jumbles up together when it really shouldn't. And last time I did this video, people in the comments were like, what about all the horrible things the UK's done? What about all the horrible things that the US has done? And yeah, fair enough, but this particular example, this particular relationship is just so much worse than any other example you could find. This video is not about All Elite Wrestling in any way, shape, or form, but something JBL said a few years ago just sort of makes them slightly relevant here. They say they're on a mission to change the world. Now, on screen, that is manifesting itself as a very diverse wrestling product with styles from all over the world, and behind the scenes, they're pushing for sensory inclusion, and they're recruiting wrestlers from more minimized groups of society. So that does kind of back up the words. But JBL says that WWE has also changed the world. He went on Fox in the whole wake of the Khashoggi murder to support their decision to continue to do the Crown Jewel show, and he said, if you isolate that country, all you do is impoverish that country. He said that about Saudi Arabia, the 12th richest nation in the world. He went on this big rant using the whole tribute to the troops and the post 9/11 SmackDown as examples of all this, saying that WWE has been at the forefront of change, and you want to change Saudi Arabia, you send something like WWE there. Well, f me, problem solved. Let's just recap this situation very briefly, shall we? Sami Zayn is not allowed to be on this show because of his Syrian ancestry. Aleister Black is not allowed to be on this show because he has a back tattoo for women's equality. Not a single woman in the entire company, Alexa Bliss, Bayley, Becky Lynch, Charlotte, Lacey Evans, the Iconics, Carmella, anybody, they are not allowed to perform on this show because they are women. In the nation of Saudi Arabia, WWE isn't even changing things for its own wealthy, privileged athletes. It is about a million miles away from changing anything for the millions upon millions of normal people who live there every single day. It's not doing anything to change the regime, it is just perpetuating it. But then, of course it does. The Saudi General Sports Authority pays eye-watering money to WWE to put on these eye-catching events that make the country look progressive and friendly to the West. It's not doing anything for the people who attend these shows, doing nothing for the population of Saudi Arabia. It is a company trying to make money by putting over a political regime. And they've had a much easier time of it this year, haven't they? Way less pressure to pull out, way less pressure to cancel this relationship because, well, the Saudi government hasn't just been implicated in the state-sponsored murder of a journalist, which helps. And that was the thing about Jamal Khashoggi's death, wasn't it? It was the threat to journalistic freedom. It was the global political ramifications of it all. All stuff that's really easy for the Western media to get their teeth stuck into and make a big fuss about. Certainly a lot easier than, say, I don't know, top of my head, the Saudi-led coalition airstrike that killed at least 40 children in Yemen last year. Saudi Arabia, per Amnesty International, is the world's third biggest executioner. And according to other reports, they are on course to execute more people this year than at any other year this decade. April the 23rd, 2019, 37 imprisoned civilians are mass executed in that country. 14 of them were only imprisoned on very thin evidence, purely relating to political protests that had been on between 2011 and 2012. All of that is as bad as the Khashoggi story. But these more recent human rights atrocities will just not get the same kind of airtime as that one did, because there's no hook, there's no overlap with our precious Western values, so the news doesn't consider it as important. And all the while the regime rolls on and WWE does more shows saying how great they are. If this is the first time you're hearing about this, ask yourself why you're having to hear it from me. Like, I am a YouTuber who was yesterday doing a fucking sock puppet gimmick to try and talk about Bray Wyatt. Why am I the one who has to tell you about the execution of 37 human beings by a regime that WWE is going to try and put over? So yes, the disturbing truth behind Super Showdown is that this company that we've all grown up watching, that has given us endless wish fulfillment when our heroes conquer all these villains, this company is now on an unimaginable heel turn that's just incomprehensibly awful. The relationship between WWE and the Saudi General Sports Authority does not change anything. Not the way the company think it will, not the way their mouthpieces on the news will tell you it will. It changes nothing. It just perpetuates this awful, awful regime on and on and on and on, all the while people are actually dying. But hey, Goldberg's back. Now, I must caveat all this by saying that at the time of recording there is talk, albeit just talk, that WWE are pushing to have Alexa Bliss versus Natalya on this card somewhere. But if that happens, is it anything other than another cynical, transparent PR exercise designed to shut people like me up? Will it do anything for the 10 million plus women who actually live in this country? We'll have to wait and see. So yes, there you go. I'm sorry there's not a big, juicy, obvious news story to try and compare how bad this is for you this time, but it is still just as bad as it was in November, and it's not getting any better anytime soon. But you know the drill. Let us know what you make of it in the comments below, and of course don't forget to like, share and subscribe. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I have of course been Adam Cleary. Who else? And I'll see you soon.